So do I, thank you for voting me as chairperson of this. I thought you guys had to vote, but I guess I am now the chairperson of this committee, so I'd like to call it to order. You
Thank
do
you.
take minutes, right? You guys take minutes, yeah.
Okay, we'll do the roll call. Commissioner Santana,
Here.
Commissioner Weller,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Lopez,
Present.
and Chairperson Rodriguez.
Present. So I guess this time we have to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Mary, you want to lead us?
Put your hand over your left, over your heart, and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners' reports. So I don't know if we have any. We haven't met in a while. So this is something that you will go over, or?
Yeah, so the standard agenda is that it would have commissioners' reports. So you could take this opportunity to go around by each commissioner, introduce yourselves, as this is the first grouping that and group meeting that we have. So that's what would be my recommendation.
Okay, so starting with my left, Mr. Weller.
Thank you. We started here in the city of Palm Desert in 1981. Went through 20 years there. In 2001, I came to the city of Indio as a risk manager, an assistant city manager, and then interim city manager. So I've been in government for quite a few years. Before that, before I started my government career, I was a general contractor, building houses out here in the Coachella Valley. So that's why I started in building and safety, because I had some building experience. So anyway, Ben put me on this committee, and I appreciate that, and hope I can be of help.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fernando Lopez. Obviously, full disclosure, I am in law enforcement. I work for the Sheriff's Department. On the job almost 17 and a half years. I was appointed to this position, and I'm grateful to be here, and hopefully we can get some business taken care of.
Welcome. Pedro S.G. Rodriguez. I'm a long-time resident of Indio. I've been here for a long time. I'm a former COD alumni. I guess I was appointed chairman of this committee. I was appointed by Oscar to this commission for the last 4 years, and I guess I was reappointed. I am currently the CEO of the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition. We're in the affordable housing business. I've been there for almost 30 years. Formerly the CFO, so I have a little understanding about finances. I was a CFO for 26 years before becoming the CEO. And I'm looking forward to serving this committee and seeing the city of Indio grow. I mean, I actually have seen the city grow tremendously, and I just saw the nice monument that we have right there, and it's beautiful. I didn't recognize the downtown area. It's awesome. So, looking forward to working with all of you guys.
My name is Marie Santana, and I came to Indio in 1967. I worked 17 years for Coachella Valley Unified School District, 17 years for Desert Sands Unified School District, retired, and worked in real estate for 15 years. And I finally decided I wanted to know what it was to be retired and do nothing. So I have 2 children, and they went to Indio high schools. And I was selected by Councilwoman Holmes.
Thanks, Marie. My name is Rob Rockwell. I worked for the City of Indio for 14 years, retired last September, and the reason I'm on this commission is because I'm the elected city treasurer. Although I'm not a voting member, that's why I'm sitting up here on the dais. So I know it's been hard to get this team together, so I'm really excited. I've been on that side of the table trying to get this commission together, so it's good. It's good to see everybody here. Thank you.
So we have a vacant position. Did we have a resignation? Is that what happened?
Yes, we do, and that's actually, well, we'll get there. It's one item on the agenda that we will go through the organization of the commission.
So the next item is a minutes for the Advisory Commission meeting of August 27, 2021. Simple minutes. I'd like to hear a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Second the motion, okay. Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, commissioners, are you able to vote? In front of you, there's a box that you can press to vote. Are you able to do that?
It says voting,
Yes.
so we
Oh,
say,
there's one. I need 3 more.
did I vote?
Yes, I have 2 now.
It's not coming up on mine.
Do the plus?
The plus, yes. 3, and then 1 more.
I did press it. It didn't show?
I show 3.
Press the green line.
1 more.
On
The
green- on
button
green.
right
Oh,
next to
right here?
To the left,
Yeah.
just left of it, the gray faded one.
Did I do it?
Shows clear.
It shows clear.
Before we go on, he could abstain because I wasn't here for those last meetings.
It didn't do it,
3 of them.
right?
The green?
It's
You-
okay. We
You
can do
could
the roll.
abstain, right? Or you could
Nope.
vote.
We can do the roll call. It's okay.
It's not working savvy.
That's okay. But we'll just do roll call. Okay. Commissioner Santana,
Yes.
Commissioner Weller,
Abstain?
Commissioner Lopez,
I think I'm also have to abstain since I wasn't present.
and Chairperson Rodriguez.
Yes.
Okay. That passes 2-2, since we have a vacancy. Thank you.
Okay, so finance reports. Can we have an introduction of the city staff that are present?
Yes, so I'll kick that off here. First of all, welcome and thank you. My name is Ruby Walla, the Director of Finance for the City of Indio. Just a little bit about myself. I joined the City of Indio here March of last year of 2024 and joined the team as a new city's Director of Finance, successing to Rob. And with his grace, he kind of championed me through some of the elements of the organization. And so what I have is actually 20 plus years overall of general municipal finance experience, spanning from Imperial County, where I started my background there for over 15 years before venturing out to the Coachella Valley with the City of Indian Wells as the Assistant Finance Director there for about 6 years, and then coming on to the City of Indio. Happy to serve here, full service. So I have experience in contract services as well as full service cities, going from one side of the spectrum to another side of the spectrum on all types of the fiscal position for those local agencies. Other than that, I thank you again for taking time out of your day to meet with us today to get this annual meeting scheduled and to meet and to go over all the items that we have before you. And then I'll move on to the presentation as we go through those items, but other staff are welcome to introduce themselves as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan Nix. I'm the current Assistant City Manager. So it's wonderful to have some backup and 2 previous Assistant City Managers here. So I started right after Rob retired. I started in September of 24. I was most previously working for the City of Menifee on the other side of Riverside County. I was a Deputy City Manager there. I worked there for 7 years. I have 25 years total working in local government. I worked for, this is my 4th city. I worked for the County of Orange a couple times before that. So very glad to be here in Indio. I have my family out here, have my kids in the Indio School District. So thank you very much.
And behind me is my support, Rachel. Rachel Poos, she's our finance manager. And that concludes my report.
How about Savvy?
And I'm Savdi. I am the Director of City Clerk Services, and I serve as the Secretary for CFAC today. Glad to be here.
Okay, so we have a review of Citizens Finance Advisory Commission scope in accordance with ordinance number 1750. With you?
Excuse me, Chair, we also skipped the public comment section.
Yes. So do you want me to open it up for public comments?
Yes, please.
So at this time, we'll open up for public comments. Anybody that's willing to have any comments, they're welcome to join us.
And I have no comments.
Okay. All right, seeing none, then we'll close the public comment section.
Next, you can go to the staff presentations, Chair.
Yes. So staff report review of Citizens Finance Advisory Commission scope in accordance with ordinance number 1750. Okay.
See you all in Navigate. So we prepared a presentation for you for all the remaining items within the agenda. Again, Ruby Walla, Director of Finance for the City of Indio. Again, thank you for taking your time to be here today to go over these items, and I look forward to the meetings that come after. Okay, there we go. So the Citizens Finance Advisory Commission. So what we wanted to do was go over the scope, right? We haven't met in quite some time, and if you, in review of the agenda, the last time we had a quorum and actually officially met, as the minutes displayed, was August 2021. So it was very important, and probably now moving forward, you'll probably see this as just a reminder of what the commission scope is, what our responsibilities are as a commission, and then moving forward. So overall, the commission scope is actually adheres to Municipal Code Section 34.176. It's tied to Ordinance 1750. That ordinance has been included in your packets, and what that outlines is actually all city commissions. It outlines the responsibilities, how appointments are acted upon. It actually outlines specifically our membership of the CFAC Commission. And we have 5 voting members with our city treasurer, as Rob alluded to, which is the ex officio member, which is a non-voting position. And the Citizens Oversight Committee is primarily overseeing the Measure S and Measure X dollars, or otherwise known as well as Measure E, which was the extension, and we'll go through that as well throughout the report. And then once at minimum, the commission is to meet at least once a year when these audits are available. So the city as a whole conducts its annual audits, and as part of that audit process, we audit the utility users tax, which is Measure S, and then the transaction use tax, which is Measure X, also known as Measure E, and that's evaluated each year during our audit process, and those have their separate reports. And those are the reports that we will bring forward to you, and those are the reports that are also included in your packet, and these current reports stem from fiscal year 2021 through fiscal year 2024, which was the most recent audit. Once that audit is available, finalized with our auditors, we have 45 days as a commission to review that audit from its availability. So as soon as those audits are available, the goal is to coordinate with the commission on a date that we can meet to review those audit reports. And from those audit reports, then you direct the finance director with a recommendation to present those to the city council for acceptance to receive and file those reports after your review. Any questions there?
Ruby, so you basically, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No questions, okay. So we're doing after the fact expenditures. would it be possible to, to maybe look at them before, I mean, because I know the city does a budget. Are those expenditures budgeted as part of your overall budget process?
Yes, so part of our overall budget process, Measure X dollars are allocated. They're allocated specifically to currently debt service and to capital project funding. So they are within the current budget. We just adopted the budget this past Wednesday evening, and that all that details in there. That's why it's comprised as a total citywide budget. If the commission would like to review any of those projects or those timelines throughout the year, I'm happy to schedule a meeting as we progress to see what, where we're at with expenditures, how those projects are progressing. And as we go through the project, and especially within the report that we have today, you'll see how the projects trend. We report out on what the capital spending is, but we do budget within the normal budget process what the anticipated revenue stream and those offsetting expenditures are.
So, members of the committee, is that something that would be of interest to you to maybe?
Well, I was kind of curious when we went to the one meeting, annual meeting, because we don't have an opportunity to give input prior to the expenditures being made, and it just didn't make sense to me. I was reading through the material, and they said that we can, when we review the budget, which is after the fact, that if we have any recommendations for council, that we can present it at that time. And I guess they would give consideration to either making a change if it was warranted, or explaining the situation. But we were meeting and we were involved, and we were we saw what the budget looked like. We were given the projects that were being proposed were presented to us for input, and I thought that gave us well-rounded information so that we could participate. At one point, I do know that Measure X is capital projects, and at one point there were some police salaries deducted from Measure X, and so we were able to get those transferred out. So, but now that we're only doing this after the fact, we don't have that opportunity. So even like you said, even one additional meeting with the budget, and maybe having information on if we could be given information on the projects that are being proposed.
Definitely can meet and provide what the plan is, what the city's plan is considering Measure X dollars, and as they're going to be spent, and how we're projecting revenues, as well as what are the anticipated projects for those. Again, we do have those prepared, but understanding the desire of the commission, as we progress, happy to schedule a meeting intermittently, as well as provide, we do hold a study session where we kind of discuss all of those parameters related to capital and some of that spending. So again, anyone, any commission as well as the public, is invited to those study sessions to give their input on that. But as in terms of the scope of the commission based on the ordinance, it doesn't define that piece of it as having a say specifically in a meeting to give direction to the city council on the spending, but it doesn't say that we can't meet and review that as a whole.
It wasn't direction, it was recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, that we could probably serve better, even if you could provide us with the projected expenditures for the next year, right, on the Measure X. At least it gives us an idea what we're confirming, because the role, I understand our role would be to verify that the expenditures happen based on the audit. But if you at least had something before, okay, well, most of the expenditures were done, right? And it's still an advisory role, but at least it gives us a better understanding of what's going on in the city.
Right. So as of right now, I can tell you and articulate for you, especially in our current 24-25 budget, we do have projected 18.2 million, 18.5 million to be exact, of Measure X dollars that we're anticipating, and all those are actually attributed to, again, about 1.1 million for debt service. We also have significant contributions for streets, roads, and rehabilitation of $5 million. That's an ongoing annual commitment. That's pretty kind of set at this point. We did this year, as well as moving into the next fiscal year, is commit $5 million for the public safety headquarters building. So that's another 10 million there in total of those. And so at this point, moving into next year, our debt service obligations have increased because we have our 2022 lease revenue bonds, and Measure X is a committed cost share to that, which with the new buildings, with the public safety phase 1, as well as the new city hall and library, and that's going up 6.7 million in addition to the one that we had already. So those resources are pretty capped at this point, but and then the remainder, which was 481,000 moving into the next fiscal year budget, is to really fund any existing capital, because as expressed at the meeting, the budget meeting on Wednesday, we have the Monroe Interchange project, which is a significant project for the city, as well as the headquarters building that's coming down the pipeline. And we have taken advantage of all available resources in the city. So any ongoing Measure X dollars are really looking at to be committed for that purpose.
Well, to give a little history on this commission, when Measure X was put out to the voters, there was a committee formed of citizens, and to try to determine how we could get the measure passed, because the residents are always hesitant about getting additional taxes. And we had voted for a 4% tax to fix the streets. And that was when we had the financial crisis and the state took our money, and we were really in a bind. So the streets didn't get fixed. The 4% was spent in other areas, which I don't blame the city for doing it, but that 4% kind of disappeared. It never did get put back into what the intent was. So that's the reason that when they marketed the Measure X, it did have in there that there would be an oversight committee of citizens, of residents, and the measure passed. And so that's why I feel that it's important to for the commission to continue to monitor. And if at some point, which I've heard that they may, they would like to maybe do away with the commission, if that should happen, I think that the residents need to be advised that the oversight committee will be disbanded or terminated, because the reason that Measure X passed is because we indicated that we were going to have an oversight committee.
Correct, and as drafted,
I think
I
Commissioner
understand.
Weller-
Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner Weller has a question.
Yeah, so we're, on the audit of the Measure X money is done by, obviously, a CPA group,
Yes.
and our responsibility is oversight. What exactly does that mean?
You know, Rob has more history than I, and so I'm grateful that he's here so he can chime in and give some of that context for the commission.
Thank you, Ruby. Yeah, I wanted to provide some guidance because there's a lot of paperwork here. So I don't know if the ballot language is in the packet, and certainly we need to give staff some more time to go through this before we overwhelm them with questions, because a lot of those questions might be answered
Right.
here. But the ballot language is the fundamental reason why this commission exists. And the ballot language cannot be undone by the council. The council cannot do away with this commission.
Exactly.
They can change the members, of course. So that is set, and that mission that's in the ballot language is fundamentally why you're here. And the reason you're here is to review the expenditures and make sure that they are in accordance with the approved ballot measure, which was, of course, approved by the people, the residents of this city. So we need to be familiar with that language and make sure that the expenditures are in accordance with that format, not in accordance with the budget. That's a different kind of question.
Right.
Right, so from that perspective, it's not the commission's purview to dictate the budget, but to review the expenditures. And to go to Commissioner Santana's point, there have been a lot of changes in the scope of what this commission has been responsible for over the years. And as we review the ordinance, like the document that staff is presenting to us now, these rules and regulations expand and contract because the ordinances are controlled by the city council. They can't, again, take away the commission's responsibility to look at how the expenditures occurred. There has to be a body, maybe not this one, but a body that has to exist to review the expenditures per the ballot requirements. Again, I'm being repetitive. But that scope can be expanded and shrunk. And an example of that would be back during the Great Recession, the scope of this commission's rules or the duties were expanded to review the budget, the entire budget, not just the general fund budget, and mainly the general fund budget, of focusing on what cuts might be appropriate and what cuts may not be appropriate. And then when the city started to grow, this commission participated in providing feedback to the council on where they thought the priority of the growth, the money for the growth, should be obligated. Now, what has transpired over the last 10 years is the scope of this commission has been modified and it's been reduced. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, that's just the nature of the politics and how the policies change. So the ordinance that we're reading now was just adopted in 2021, I believe, which gives you an example of how often the scopes of commissions, that specific ordinance was written for all commissions, not just this one. But as we get through the paperwork, you'll see more language that's more specific to this commission. And I would encourage us not to not ask for information, but just not to get too distracted by some of the city council's job on where they're adopting the budget versus what the real focus is of this commission is to see if the money spent, if they spent it, for example, putting on I'm going to make a bad example here, on a staff Christmas party, that would be something I think the commission would want to say that's not in accordance with the ballot measure. But if they can show us that they spent it on streets and roads and police officers and police cars and capital projects, then that's really the reason that we're here, to say, hey, okay, that money's been spent. And a good part of that is, has it all been spent? How much of it is still there? And what is maybe for the plan for the money that's not been spent? So I just wanted to put that out there, and thank you for your time.
That gives me one question. So if there is leftover money, does it have to be used for Measure X, or does it go to the general fund?
It's being retained by Measure X for Measure X
Or
purposes.
retained by Measure X?
Yes, it's being retained by Measure X. It is a component of the general fund in essence, but the reports that you have before you, the audit reports, do track the fund balance, so that balance does stay significantly with Measure X, and so we continue to track those dollars independently.
So Rob says we review expenditures. Now, the consultant come up with, this is how much money was spent on Measure X, and they even have it broken down, what I see in here, under certain departments. How do we see the expenditures on that?
So if you want a detailed listing of the supporting expenditures that roll up into those balances, is that what you're requesting?
If my responsibility is to see expenditures, then I guess I need to find a way to see, are they expenditures? How much, whatever.
Yeah, that could be an addendum that we can add to the record as far as what are the composite of those entries that make up those balances that hit those specific project codes, because most of our categories are tracked by a project code, so we can provide that additional detail as part of this component as well.
I guess,
Well,
my overall, my major concern is I don't want somebody in the future to come back and look at the commission and say you didn't follow your responsibilities, which would cause maybe issues with the commission. So I would like to make sure we keep it nice and tight so that we don't have that possibility in the future.
No, I understand that. And then that getting to that granular level as well is that's why we have an outside
Right.
firm do that audit
Yeah.
process so
At
that they
CPA,
ensure that.
should, yeah.
Right, that they review those expenditures and they validate what we've provided them and the activity that's going in the fund. So indeed, if we were spending it where we shouldn't have, it would be showing up on that report,
Yeah.
right? So, I don't know if
So
that's.
we're relying on the auditors, right?
No.
They're the ones that.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I just have a different perspective, if you don't mind me sharing. The auditors are there to validate that the expenditures are truly spent and that the revenue that is reported is truly reported, that the numbers are accurate. It's the auditor's job to make sure that in some cases, I shouldn't say that the money is spent in accordance with city policy, meaning that if $1 million was spent, it didn't get spent outside of the council's approval. But it's not the auditor's job necessarily unless they've been asked specifically by staff. And that may have occurred, so don't get me wrong. It's just not their primary duty to do your job, to validate the expenditures have been spent toward the ballot language. Now, if we work with staff, or you work with staff, there can be, once we have, I don't know if you've gone through the documentation, once we go through the documentation, the auditors may have a special report specifically on Measure X.
Right.
But again, we'll have to find out what the scope of their audit was, whether it was just to produce a financial statement or whether it was to make sure all the expenditures were approved by the council, or whether or not the expenditures were in accordance with the ballot language.
Well, it was my understanding that they had part of their scope of their audit will be to review the expenditures for Measure X. And that's why we're relying on this report.
There is a separate
But-
report
yeah.
for Measure X.
Yeah,
yes.
so they do have a separate scope of work that just focuses on them reviewing the actual expenditures for Measure X.
Yes.
They did indicate in their letter that we identified the expenditure categories which were supported by measure, in this case S, revenues, and verified that they were allowable under the provisions of the ballot measure approved by the voters. So they did make a statement. But I agree with.
Where's that, Commissioner Santana?
I agree with Rob that our function was expanded for a while, but it was page 91. But I agree with him in the fact that I don't feel that the commission was designated at the beginning to look after all of the finances of the city. And I think that if we were able to get the information on the projects that are being paid, that are being proposed and are being paid from the Measure X and Measure S, before they happened, then that way and if we received information on that portion of the expenditures, that's the only thing that I know that we were supposed to be responsible for.
One more question. Does the finance department take Measure A money as it's spent with a code on it to show us where that Measure A money is in each individual project? So are there project numbers that it's assigned to?
The Measure X dollars, no, they're not specifically. So we recently, this last year, have, actually, there's been a series of changes within the financial system to better track Measure X dollars. So we do have a specific capital project fund that we do have created to maintain project Measure X dollars in there. And then so they should be charged to that fund moving forward, in essence. And so that's how, even if it's for
debt service, what we're gonna do is basically, we receive all those dollars into the general fund, and through, the internal fund transfers, we'll transfer to this, projects fund, capital projects fund, and then we will reallocate if it's for debt service. And then that way, any surplus that's in the fund for future projects is available there.
I think that may be the way to help us oversight, is to see those, just the way it's broken out by fund.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's why I don't have a problem as an addendum to this, is providing that breakdown of those details that capture that activity.
Good.
That would help. I see that they have a breakdown, they have a graph that shows the categories, general government, public works.
Right, and that's one of the items on the agenda, so if we want to move forward, I'm happy to go.
Just to clarify with Rob, there is a agreed upon procedures where they're actually looking at.
Yeah, and that's a
Measure
great,
X, yeah.
thank
So
you,
it's-
Mr. Chairman. Probably the best to have staff go through the items so we can make sure that we see what we have in total. This particular item is related to Measure S, and that's a good point to reiterate that commission does not just exist for Measure X, it's Measure S as well.
All right.
And having some insight, I can tell you that monitoring Measure S is it's a little different animal than auditing and measuring Measure X, I'm sure staff will get into, but we have to remember that that's our scope, all that money that's come in through ballot initiatives.
Yeah, the same statement that you read holds true for Measure X. I don't have the page number right now, but they both mention that
Okay.
over.
So we're still on staff report, or are we?
So
moving
overall,
forward?
the scope of the commission, if you're satisfied with that, we can move on to the next item.
Well, I have one question.
Yeah, of course.
On page 9, operational procedures, it indicates that commissions shall present annually, either orally or in writing, a report of activities to the city council. Does that include this commission also, and should we be preparing for that?
Let me
We're only gonna be meeting once a year.
I want to say that when I read through the
That's
commission-
item number 2 on page 9.
We could probably do a written report, said that we met and we ratify the expenditures of Measure X. I'm not sure how it was done in the past.
Again, if I may, thank you. In the past, desires and comments were passed to the finance director, who publicly reported that to the council in an open session. But I can tell you, also having some insight, is the council wants to see the commissions, and they want to know what they're doing and how things are going. And this specific language is so that the council has some insight as to what the commission is going. So while we can ask staff to relay our messages or our concerns, if the commission had concerns, I would expect it to actually put something in writing and make it more formal, right? Because you do directly report to the council. So I would say it's really up to the commission to decide what the level of the message is, and that should dictate what the format should be.
Well, in the past, when you presented the recommendations from the commission, we were in attendance at the meeting in case there were any questions.
And the message was easy. The message was, hey, it's all thumbs up, the commission's happy. You know, that may not always be the case.
And then to add to that, so it goes both ways, and to echo what Rob was saying, is that it is the desire of the commission, and as outlined, it does say in actually 34.176, where commission shall present the annual public report to the city council with its recommendation to receive and file same. The commission's recommendation shall include but not be limited to identification of city council action warranted to address any irregularities noted in the annual public report, so that you have reviewed this report. So Historically, as far as I know, right, I've been here since 2024. Rob is our historian on this, so he has a lot more insight. But if it was delegated on behalf, to the finance director on behalf of the commission, I'm happy to do that. But as well as if the commission desires to do that on their behalf at any meeting, I'm happy to coordinate for the agenda posting. However we want to proceed moving forward, I can do either way.
Question. I understand that the ballot measure says we gotta meet once a year. But that doesn't preclude us from meeting more times a year.
That is correct. It says just at
So
least
if-
once a
So
year.
if we want to establish meetings based on budgets, mid-year budgets, projects, we can do that.
Correct. You have that at the discretion of the
And that
commission if
doesn't
we
need
want to.
That doesn't need to be formalized.
Well, I would like to formalize that in terms of to meet meeting schedules and expectations so that I can coordinate properly as well to meet the desire of the commission. So if it wants to be on a quarterly and it wants to be the last Thursday of the month, last Friday of the month, however that works, we'd have to reach consensus. So if you want an ongoing report of projects or just status, I'm glad to do that on what we have as on our ongoing process. So yes, it's at the discretion of the commission. The requirement is at least once a year to review primarily the public report, but I don't have any discretion at all in my sense as far as looking at where we're at in terms of our project status and revenue stream. It'd be the same format.
I think, hope Rob agrees that this commission is a benefit. It helps the staff. Doesn't hinder them, I hope. But we can at least see some of these things, and if we have questions, maybe you don't, but we do, it might help the process.
Well, I think we can probably maybe discuss it, but maybe 2 meetings a year. I know that we're probably gonna have another meeting to ratify the expenditures for fiscal year 24-25. Is that, when would that happen next year?
Yes, but that's also in the presentation towards the end. But yes, that would happen towards the end at completion of the audit. Would we like to proceed through the rest of the
Yes,
items?
please proceed, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So what I wanted to allude to, what we started with, was the selection of the chair and the vice chair. If you're ready to move on to that item?
Yes, well, I guess I'm temporary chair for today's, but yes, that's something that we like to do, yeah.
Yes.
How do we want to proceed? Do
Okay.
we need to have nominations or?
So I wanted to go through, as well as in ordinance 1750 that is also included in your packets, it outlines the delegation of the chair and the vice chair. So I just want to call out the major points that highlight or how that selection works. And it goes in the order of: the position of chair and vice chair shall rotate at the commission meeting that follows the annual rotation of mayor and mayor pro tem by the city council. A chairperson and a vice chairperson shall serve for 1 year. A rotation progression of the chair and vice chair position among commissioners shall be established based upon seniority of appointment. Notwithstanding the definition of seniority of appointment, for newly appointed commissioners, the order of seniority among those newly appointed commissioners shall be established according to their nominating council members' district number from lowest to highest. Seniority of appointment is defined as the length of the commissioner's tenure, which begins from the date of their appointment by the city council, regardless which council member nominated such commissioner. So as we discussed earlier, and as you can tell, we have one vacancy. So when we first published this meeting for May 1st, we did have Jeff Anderson as part of the commission, who at that point in time was in line for chair, with Pedro Rodriguez as vice chair at that time. Prior to that, it was Marie as chair and Jeff Anderson as vice chair. So on May 1st, we received the resignation of Mr. Anderson, therefore creating the vacancy. And as we move forward to reschedule this meeting for today on June 6th, we reorged the commission, which now puts Mr. Rodriguez as the chair and Fernando Lopez as vice chair. And that's how we selected the rotation. And then again, Fernando Lopez and Ken Weller came in at the same time, but because of the order of district from lowest to highest, that's how we made that selection.
Okay, on the seniority appointment is defined as the length of the commissioner's tenure, which begins from the date of their appointment.
Yes.
My appointment was not on January 19th, 2019. How was that date arrived at?
Well, that was just that was the reappointment. I feel like this goes in line with the council members.
Oh, so every time the council member, if they they are elected again.
Correct.
Then it's the election date.
Yes. So that at that point, but when we talk about the position of the commissions, we do look at your tenure on the commission as a whole.
Well-
But this is your appointment date is in connection with that council member.
And you serve 1 year, so then
But you
have to
can only
rotate.
serve one, you can serve 1 year at a time.
So what you're saying is this is my year?
Correct.
Okay. Do we need to ratify that, or is that just something part of the?
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Just for the record and for my edification, can we clarify which council member appointed you? Just so I know.
Holmes.
Yeah.
And it was in December 17, 2014.
Mr. Chairman, you were appointed by Mr. Miller, Councilmember?
Mr. Ortiz.
Yes, in
Oh,
the
Oscar.
packet outlines the appointing
I was
council
reappointed,
member.
I guess.
On
That's in the
page
packet.
20?
Page 20, thank you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I want the public to know there's over 100 pages here, so it's not like I'm looking at one of 20. Page 20, thank you.
And our vacancy is currently for District 2 for Wayman Furman.
And the way the process works, he would have to appoint somebody else?
That is correct. So there are, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the appointments are currently open now.
Okay, any other questions on that? I gladly accept.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 7.3. Having no other questions. 7.3, review and discussion of Measure X and Measure S annual reports. So we're doing 3 years? 21, 22, 23,
4.
24. Wow, okay. Staff?
Yes. So here we are going to go into, well, the first item is Measure X in the City of Indio Neighborhood Safety Essential City Services Improvement Measure. And a little background on Measure X, and we've talked, and just to go over, is the general 1% tax on transaction use tax. It went through the Prop 218 process, and it passed in 2016. And at that time, and I'll just say that the ballot language at that time was to maintain rapid 911 emergency response times, police gang drug enforcement programs, increase police patrols of neighborhoods, parks, and schools, improve water quality, delivery by upgrading pipes, infrastructure, fix potholes, and other city services. Shall Indio adopt an ordinance to enact a 1-cent sales tax for 20 years, providing $8,500,000 annually at that time, with citizens' oversight, annual audits, all money for Indio, prohibiting state government from taking funds raised. Later, and that was in 2016, and later moved forward with Measure E in 2021, which extended that until end. So it did not have a sunset, in other words. They really took off the sunset there. And at that time was anticipated of $12 million of general fund or revenue that would come into the city for these purposes. And again, the language was revised. Shall an ordinance to preserve paramedic and fire protection, 911 response, police gang drug enforcement programs, neighborhood patrols, address homelessness, protect water quality delivery, fix streets and potholes, other city services by extending the city's existing 1% sales tax until end, again, the sunset reference, by voters without increasing the tax, providing approximately $12 million annually, continuing the citizens' oversight, annual audits, and prohibiting state government from taking funds raised. So that clawback that the state was doing at that time.
And do we have that in our packet, that language?
Yes.
If you have the page number.
Page?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's within your slides. I don't have the ballot language. I don't believe I put
Because
it
I
down.
reviewed it and I don't remember seeing that.
No, I don't think the ballot language is part of the staff
I
report.
think
no.
we need to have that because that tells us what our responsibility as the oversight committee is.
I'll keep moving.
Can you email us, please?
So next we have is a summary of the expenditures and changes in fund balance. Again, this is a summary as defined, though that's why you have such a large packet, includes the details, but here in this presentation tells you since 2016, 2017, what the revenue stream coming into the city was for these Measure X dollars and what the ongoing expenditures were on a fiscal year basis and what our fund balance is. To date, we have received $103 million through June 30, 2024 in Measure X dollars. We have expended $58 million with a fund balance of $45.4 million currently as of June 30, 2024. And this is all supported within the backup that you have by each financial report, which I've also included a quick picture of each one, just so that we can go through them for quick reference outside of your packets.
Ruby, can I ask a question?
Yeah, you sure can.
So this money, it's pretty substantial. I mean, the idea of the revenues to be spent, what this amount of money in the fund balance is probably generating interest income. Is that being allocated to the Measure X funds, or is that going to the general fund?
I believe there's a proportional share, but let me verify that in the audit.
So the idea is that you have savings, right? And that savings, if it's put in an investment account, should be generating interest income. In the last few years, the rates were 4 or 5%, so we should have had substantial amount of additional funding that should have been put into the fund balance.
That's Mr. Chairman, that's a wise consideration, and maybe something you'd want to communicate to the city council, because that would be a policy decision that would be at their discretion. So I wouldn't say it's something that would be legally required. The staff may have a different perspective, but that's certainly something that if it is discretional, should be brought to the council's attention. And for them to act, wouldn't be within this
It
commission's
wouldn't be
authority to
within
dictate
the,
that.
okay, so that would be a kind of a recommendation or something for them to think about.
Right, so as of right now, and going back, is that the Measure X dollars are transferred dollar for dollar on the whole in terms of, because we do have a pooled cash in terms of the general fund activity. So what we transfer and account there are absent any interest earnings on that fund balance.
Rob, is that something that could be done if the council so desires?
Absolutely, it could be done.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no.
My financial hat comes on. Is it, so the ideally you want to spend the revenues that come in and maybe set aside some for future projects. But I think 45 million, that's a lot of money that's set aside in the fund balance. Is there a plan for that? Because I have a nice plan. We can use some of the Monroe Street Bridge, the Monroe Bridge. I mean,
Yes.
I wait 20, I have to stay late in the office, so I avoid the traffic. But we can usually improve that bridge.
Yes, so included in the reports, and I'll jump to the beginning, because this just gives you detail as far as the project breakdown in terms of how the resources have been allocated over the years, year over year. Again, that just ties back, and that just tells you the categories of where they were spent on in terms of the dollars.
So this is perfect. This is what Commissioner Weller was asking. Now, this is the nice detail that we have here. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, are we still, okay. And then, but I'll allude to the most recent audit, which these pages within the audit outline specifically the project elements as far as what was budgeted for that year, what's the estimated cost for that project, and what we have in queue. So as you see on as of the June 30, 2024 report, those are all the outlined projects that we have with Measure X commitments and Measure X dollars associated with that. So as you can see, we have 44.4 million there as a budget. We used 14.8, and then we still have, of those project costs, 29.6 million. And as I mentioned earlier, we have made additional commitments. 10 million again, if you, on top of that, is committed to the Public Safety Headquarters building. So that's a 39 million there. That's not on here in terms of that $10 million, as well as the upcoming need to fund the Monroe interchange, as well as we have the Jackson interchange, but the Monroe is the priority above the Jackson at this point.
So do these funds carry over with their own designation? So you have savings in 24. That means those funds will be available in 25 to continue with this projects.
Correct.
And you have a way of tracking that to make sure that, you know.
Yes, we have we project track all of those by project codes, and then again, during the budget process, any new projects that come about or any funding strategies as well, those are discussed amongst the city council as far as for their direction as well.
So, sorry. It's not your responsibility to spend the money. And so this is actually for the assistant city manager. Will there be, do you provide explanations to the city council when they say, you know, we budgeted 12 million, but you know, we only spent 163 on this much needed Monroe Street interchange project? What causes delays, and are those delays related to the council in terms of why the funds were not spent? I know that's, you know, you keep track of the funding, but it's actually the project managers or whoever's responsibility to make sure that these projects get developed.
Chairperson Rodriguez, yes, we do. So we provide periodic updates to the city council about any projects. Ruby, Rob has done this in the past as well in his role, where, you know, we have two primary updates on the budget. We just went through the last one where we gave our proposed budget for next fiscal year, and then at the mid-year, around February or so, we provide them a status, like say, hey, this was our plan from July 1 to June 30th. We're right at the middle of the year. This is our status of expenditures, and if we need to make any adjustments to the plan. And then as individual projects come forward, like say this Monroe interchange project, then that is brought separately forward by Public Works and said, you know, hey, this was the plan for, say, Measure X dollar allocations. We're now ready to go into construction. We went through a bid process. We have a contractor ready, and these are the dollars we're using, including a report of the allocation of Measure X for that project. So we do that periodically and as the projects move forward.
Thank you.
If I can comment, Mr. Chairman. So again, just, it's funny being the historian, so there's a couple points I want to make. One of the points is when COVID hit the city, there was a lot of economic uncertainty. And so a lot of these capital projects were all frozen, put on hold until a little bit more of the financial certainty could be known. What was a little bit unexpected is as businesses shut down and schools shut down, people went home and they spent a lot of money at home, on the internet, buying things. And so what the city saw a little bit after the fact is that sales tax did not freeze or did not slow down. It continued to grow unexpectedly. So you have a couple things that are happening because of COVID. One is the capital project ambitions were put on hold. So, and the money was growing. So after COVID, there was a large sum of Measure X dollars. And that's one of the reasons why they have such a large amount today, is that we have this unexpected freeze in the mechanisms, if you will. The other thing that I want to mention is that the council, this didn't just happen for Measure X, this happened in the general fund overall. So there's a large pipeline of projects, and Measure X has to find its priority in those projects. And the council, if I could dare say, don't really prioritize projects based on what the funding is. They prioritize it based on what the need is of the community, right? So that may have put some projects ahead of Measure X projects. And the third thing I'll mention is when you have projects, a lot of projects take multiple years to manifest. And that's an understatement when it comes to overpasses, because that's controlled by much larger bureaucratic entities, Caltrans, for example, where the city has to prove that it has its funding share, and that means we have to have substantial millions of dollars set aside so that when Caltrans says, you know, well, are you ready? We can say, yeah, we're waiting on you. Get your butt out here, right? Because we want that project, but we have to have those funds set aside.
So this 12 million is just a portion of the overall cost, because I was
Correct. Correct. This in the current year budget is about 23 is what we're, 26 million commitment that we're looking at setting aside for Monroe.
and just, it's gonna be a 4-lane bridge? Or, do we know if they can just,
I don't have those schematics.
Yeah, you can put the Public Works Director on notice that we're expecting a full report.
He's concerned.
yes, please let them know that one of the commissioners
Were these
has to cross
projects-
that bridge every day.
Were these projects derived from strategic planning, from the city council's strategic planning process, or did they come from departments?
No, these are actually driven prior to me coming in. Again, Rob can probably chime in on this, but they have intense meetings, right, and study sessions as far as part of the budget to go over these projects and prioritize. So a lot of these are priority projects, and that's how they made this list. City manager, as far as I know, has another extensive list, and so the goal is to get what we can done as long as we can get that accomplished, and as things, you know, as needs come about. But there are other wish lists, of course, that council has outlined throughout the last few years. But the last 2 years that I've been here, second budget, it's such a robust and aggressive capital plan that many of our resources are fully committed, and we're trying to see these out through fruition in terms of the projects.
You may have more projects in time.
Yes, yes.
Correct.
Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
So I wanted to give just an overview again. I'll just go back a little bit, but I just wanted to give you that picture as far as year over year within the audits. We'll outline all those specific projects, including the debt service, and they may take different shape. They may take different names because sometimes projects, and you'll see them change from one year to the next. And again, and sometimes these are driven off budget sessions as far as why they came off, right? Something else became a new priority. Funding needed to be reallocated and reappropriated in a different way based on the need of the city at that time. So those are all included in your packet as far as the financial report that our auditors put together for us in terms of determining what was budgeted, what that project as it was outlined, and what was spent, and what's anticipated. And as you can see, in some cases, you also see where we went over budget, right? And that's expected. And any project that moves forward, any of these projects and other projects throughout the city always come before the city council within our procurement policy as far as obtaining their authorization, and anything that's a change to a project or the scope also comes forward to the city council for their review and direction at that time as well. So with that being said, again, in detail, I provided just the summary reports that are included in each of the audits pertaining to Measure X. And just to give you a little bit of history, and we talked about it a little bit, so I'm not going to belabor it too much, but 2021 through 2023, we had LSL as our auditors at that time who conducted those audits, and those are included in your packet. We engaged a new audit firm for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024, which is the PUN Group. And so that is the report that you see there. And so the city just, it's a best practice that we change auditors every 5 years, so it was time. So when I came on board, I was a new director, and I got new auditors all at the same time. So that's been nice to do and venture with here at the city. And again, at the end of the day, the auditor's opinion is that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the fund as of June 30, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. And the changes in the financial position and budgetary information for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So in general, a standard audit for Measure X, again, just conformance to how we're spending expenditures and looking at the ordinance in place in the funds. And that is the report that is provided to you as the commission. And that concludes my report for Measure X, and I'm happy to entertain any additional questions, discussion.
Any questions from any members of the commission?
I have a question. Could you explain on page 112, interest and fiscal charges? It says budgeted amount is 738,981. The final budgeted amount was 738,981, and then the actual was 3,182,495. I'm just curious because it's such a large difference.
That's a good catch, Marie. It is, so 3 million.
That is in relation to debt service, specifically for for the 2022 lease revenue bonds as well. We have a proportional share, so that's an increase that we had to contribute there as we had capitalized interest as part of that bond deal that paid a portion of that, but we do have a portion that we had to increase that debt service. That is another significant portion that's moving into these next 2 years, that it's increasing that amount as well.
So what rate was that? That's reflection of the current interest rate, right? That seemed like
The debt service obligations per the debt schedule on the bonds is just the payment that we have in place.
But what's the interest rate that we're paying?
On the bonds, I don't have that privy, but I'm happy to bring that back to you.
Can we just maybe clarify what those bonds are? Do you happen to know what the money was borrowed for?
Yes, the 2022 lease revenue bonds was borrowed for the Public Safety Campus Phase 1, as well as the City Hall and Public Library projects.
So Fernando, do you understand what that? To borrow money
Yeah, they borrowed money from one.
and then future payments come from that. So this Measure H is only a portion of the debt, so right?
Yes, it only is paying a portion, so there's a commitment there as well as to pay a portion of the debt service, not all.
Okay.
So on page, for example, going back to page 112, if you look at that just as an example, that outlines what we would spend on debts. So it shows you the capital outlay, which is, if you go to the actual column, oh, wait till you get to page, are you on 112?
112, yeah.
Page 112. Are you there? Are we all
Yes,
there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
So on page 112, it gives you a clear example of what we're doing with the budget and versus actual, and it happens the same year over year. So just talking to expenditures, that 18.5 million, came in at 18.3. Then it breaks it down in the expenditures, so it'll give you that capital outlay of that 14.8 million, which that specifically ties back onto the slide that I provided you that outlines either the detail of the categories of how those dollars were spent. So that 14.8, you should see that on that schedule that I provided within the slides, and that gives you how those dollars were spent. And then it also tells you the debt service, and it tells you that the principal, interest, and then fiscal charges. So any debt-related obligations that are in there as far as administering the debt of those bonds, it pays a proportional share too beyond the debt service and interest. But those are minor in respect in relation to the debt service payment.
So we just didn't budget enough
Correct.
for the interest and fiscal.
Correct. Actual, the anticipated
By quite a
actual
bit.
were understated.
By quite a bit, yeah. Probably Rob did the budget, right?
Probably.
No comment. But I stand here before you as it is my budget now, so.
Sorry, Rob. Yeah. That's a good catch, man. Good.
I have a couple comments.
Okay.
So, first of all, thank you very much for the packet. There's a lot of information in here, and it's challenging for the commission, who hasn't met in a couple years, to understand the scope of their duties and then to go through multiple years of information. And
At
I
the
know
same
that,
time.
yes. And so it'll take a while, I think, for the commission to kind of get up to speed. And it's great that we finally have this chance to come together. I know the numbers are big, the Measure X numbers that we looked at, there's a big number of unspent Measure X money, but I also think it's important that we highlight, and maybe Ruby can do this for us, how much money comes in annually, and just in what are the major expenditures for those funds? And because I think, from my experience, you know, there's a lot of Measure X money that is annually obligated. So the discretionary part of that money isn't as large as you may think it is when you look at a big $58 million number.
Right.
And go ahead, Ruby.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that. Let me grab my book for you real quick.
So I think it's also, thank you, Rob, and I think it's also great that you're here because you have a lot of history and you can kind of help us out and educate us. But it is a lot of information.
Yeah.
It is 4 or 5 years, 4 years. But I think once we get into it, we'll be able to have a better understanding of these numbers.
So I just wanted to share and go back to what Rob was saying. So on average, our revenue as a whole for Measure X dollars do come in roughly about 18 million. This year, moving into 25-26, again, what you saw in the report we just looked at, right, was 18.5 as a budgeted amount. We came under that at 18.3. What we saw was at that time we actually scaled back in this current budget year 24-25 to 18.2. Based on information that we received from our partners at HDL, or a consultant that we have, we're trending to come in under that, like slightly under, like at 17.9. Again, so we'll probably see a trend there, a decrease there. And with that, we learned that on the day that we had our budget study session, which we were anticipated with prior communication that we would bounce back and come and level back off. But that wasn't the case. So we have presented a budget that included a more aggressive amount of 18.6 million for Measure X. And as of Wednesday, we did dial that back, and you will see that back down to 18.2 million. And so we did do some adjustments because we want to make sure, too, because we have to fund capital, and we look towards this funding as a capital funding resource specifically. We want to make sure that what we're pitching as projects and making sure that council's desire as projects, that we do have the resources in order to meet those needs, right? So we do make those adjustments. So moving forward in the budget itself, to give you information, we did include as part of that presentation, and I'm happy to share that one slide with the commission, is we actually display and put in the budget dollar for dollar on maximize the full use, as I shared earlier, and how that breakdown is. And I have a slide specifically that shows if we're having $18.3 million in expenditures, you're going to see $18.3 million in revenue, and it's going to show dollar for dollar. And this year, what we're doing at our fiscal year end is actually we'll do a true-up calculation, right, just at the end to make sure, well, you know, did we receive? If we received a little more, we're going to transfer this out to this account that we're keeping track of, Measure X specifically, so that we continue to just track that on an ongoing basis. But to go back, as we showed, we had those outlined in the 2024 budget or audit of capital projects. But in the pipeline, just for this fiscal year, talking about budget, we have total, which is majority Measure X reliant of general fund capital projects, a total of $70 million in commitments. And that is attributed, and that's a cross between Measure X dollars and general fund as a whole, as far as a local city contribution. So right now, just to give you an idea, we already have about, those funds are basically committed at this point. So that's what we look for. So before we're looking at new projects, which we have Indio's growing, Indio's moving, but we want to finish what we have. And one thing is not just finish what we have, maintain what we have and keep it as beautiful as we've made it, right? That's the other piece to that. Ensuring that we have ongoing revenue streams to support these projects that we're doing, because we've put all this effort in. We want to maintain it. So that's another component that's added in there. Again, not a use of Measure X, but that's a component that the city has to look on supporting those other costs as well.
So Ruby, you're assuming $18.2 million next fiscal year, if I heard you correctly. How much of that 18 is going towards debt obligations, meaning it's our mortgage payment, if you will, on the public safety campus, and I know there's a piece that covers the Jefferson interchange.
I believe it's at 7.8 million is going towards debt service.
So let's just call it 8, just to simplify this.
Right.
And I know there's a piece that goes towards road maintenance.
So 5 million is
5 million.
streets and roads.
Okay, so
And
13.
then we
Right.
have 5 million that's going towards the public safety campus, the headquarters building,
The new one.
the new one.
So that's.
And then
that's
leaves
it.
a 481,000 left
Yeah, so, I mean.
to do other things.
That's
And so-
exactly my point. We have a lot of expenditures to review in the past, and we know we have $70 million worth of projects on the horizon to review. But the reality is, $18 million annually, 8 is obligated towards debt. We don't have to re-review those. Those are projects.
Right.
And $5 million for roads and $5 million for a future station. I mean, I don't want to overcomplicate what we have to do. That tells you a lot about what the future holds for Measure X. It's pretty tight.
Thank you, Rob. So do we need to make a motion to approve or to ratify the measure expenditures for the last 4 years?
What I'm gonna go through is if you wanna save that to the end, if we can, is that fine, Sabdi? At the end, once we go through all the presentations? Yeah.
So we have more?
Yeah.
have 4
I'm making
years.
up for lost time for all of us.
I want to,
So there
Mr.
is-
O'Brien, that when meetings are set at 12, then he needs to provide lunch.
So Measure S, and we'll go quickly through this, or as quickly or as slow as you'd like. But again, this is related specifically to the utility users tax for the city of Indio. So again, as a commission meeting for the first time, and as well as new commissioners, it's just helpful to go over the context of what these measures are.
We see this in our bill.
Yes, you do. And not an uncommon tax throughout many municipalities. So the City of Indio Utility User Tax Measure S was a ballot proposition from November of 2010, and that went out to the voters. And Measure S is to offset state budget cuts and limit cuts to police officers, firefighters, paramedic, and ambulance response, pothole maintenance, street repairs, graffiti removal, youth, anti-gang, anti-drug programs, senior services, parks, and other general city services. Shall the existing City of Indio utility users tax rate be increased 3%, exempting all seniors, requiring annual financial audits, citizens oversight, and no money going to Sacramento. So that was the ballot language, and I'm happy to share that as well, to have that for your availability.
And this applies to all utilities, electricity, water, is that what?
Yes, and so here we have is all so the tax, if you see here, prior to 2010, the city did have its utility user tax, and it was set at 3%, and later moved forward with a ballot measure to increase that in, after that fact, in 2010 to 6%. And these are the associated utilities that do assess the utility user tax, which we all are privy to as Indio residents. If you're from another city, you would actually, or we're all Indio residents, but from other cities, they would have the same as well. For entities that I've worked with, they've had the utility users tax as part of their component of their billing. So also
This
with
is
UUT.
It's in perpetuity, right? There's no sunset.
There is no sunset. That is correct. Similar to Measure X that move forward with no sunset as well. And then the UUT exemptions, this is included here as information. Many of you may have seen some of this circulate prior. But again, this is just an exemption that's allowed for individuals, and it's tied to the measure, I believe. Am I speaking that right, Rob?
I'm sorry.
Is the exemption written within the
measure?
Measure, right? I believe that's what I
The
see.
age?
Yes.
Yes, that's in the ordinance.
So that was written within, in the sense that this is an available option. So you live within the City of Indio limits. You are age 62 or older and file head of household, and you're a recipient of Social Security Administration, Supplemental Security Income Program, And again, you file that within the city hall. We manage that for you. We have the paperwork. The finance department takes the lead on that to assist with those, and we process those monthly.
Is that regardless of income? Or there's income?
No, there's not an income requirement
So
on
you mean
that. It's at the age of 16.
Marie and I qualify for this?
The city appreciates your extra payments.
Yeah, there's no income requirement here.
Oh, interesting.
It's just, these are just the qualifying
We have
factors.
an exemption. We could be saved on this. Thank you I learned something today.
And here are just on the Measure S, the agreed upon procedures as far as what is entailed, similar to Measure X, but obtain and review the city ordinance and ballot measure describing the purpose and allowable expenditures for Measure S funding, recalculate the amount of additional utility users tax and Measure S has generated since its passage by the voters, and identify the expenditure categories which were supported by Measure S. And the next slides will show that, and this is rather small, so I apologize because I can't see it from here myself. But this is different than your Measure X, and this is what I wanted to come to, where you don't have the series of pages that I'll have you refer to. They do have their own standalone audit year after year, but this gives you that year-over-year perspective as far as what's been received by Measure S, and then the proportional share amongst departments or the categories throughout the city on what it does based on a weighted average. So a different formula here because it's a general fund tax revenue that is for the services outlined in the ballot measure for
So
city services.
These fees are collected by the utility companies, so do you audit them, or how do you verify what they're collecting on from the city residents?
So we don't get any reporting from these utility companies. That's not an easy, not just for Indio, for any city, working with those utility. What we do is ensure that they're assessing the fee. So we do, if, for instance, in 2010, when this measure changed, the city would have been active in ensuring that these utility companies are aware of this change in the increase and that they are collecting. In terms of audit, we have not done an audit. I have not done an audit. I don't know historically the city's done, but it is quite challenging, and I'm speaking just from past experience in that realm with any utility company. But we don't, on a monthly basis, get like a report or a query of say 28,000 accounts that show us who paid what. We don't get that kind of record.
So you'll get a payment from them, or?
Yeah, so monthly we get utility user tax remitted to us often from all utility companies that they remit to the city.
I know at one point, I'm just going historically, I know that IID did not collect a fee for the city for a few years, right? The television. Right. I don't know how much money we lost.
These entities can be audited, and in fact, there was an audit of IID. As you know, the city's boundaries sometimes change, and also internal errors can occur on the utility side. Yes, and there was a lawsuit. It was just before I arrived at the city, so that was about 14, 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, where there were some discrepancies that were found based on IID billing, and I understand the city had to go to court to enforce that action, and there was a remedy, and in fact, that the city did receive at the end.
Thank you, Rob. I happen to remember that reading in the paper.
And the next slide here and this page of the report just provides you with the effect of Measure S on utility users' tax revenue, which shows the difference between what was collected and what if the 3% change. So estimated, it goes through the total utility users tax less the cable utility for the small exemption and the change there. And then it shows the total utility users tax, and you compare what it was in between without Measure S. So what we would be receiving without that 3% increase. So 8.2 million, but if we didn't do the 3%, we'd be at 4.6 million. So with that change, brought us to 4.1 million in additional revenue to the city. And again, that's what we're looking at today is 8.7 million of a $129 million, or actually $123 million revenue budget that we have estimated.
Where's that number again? So I see total utility, so how much we actually received? Is 10 million, 23, 24?
Yes, 10.9 for 23, 24.
So as the increase of fees and our percent, the number's gonna increase as well.
That is correct. So a good note is we recently went through a water rate increase process, Prop 218. So similar to that, IID is also raising their rates. Again, no control on us, but we are a beneficiary of that in terms of the utility user tax. So as those rates go up, or consumption habits change, that affects us as well. What you saw in utility user tax, I'll just share real quick, is especially telecom, which I think the city did do in 2010 to kind of expand probably their scope to include all the changes in technology. You know, where we used to just be your home phone, you know, landline and so forth, and then all of a sudden cell phones came about and all these different type of telecommunications. So a lot of cities did make change at that time to expand the scope because they were starting to see shifts within their utility user tax transactions. And that concludes for Measure S. And again, we talked a little bit about it, but normally going forward with our audit, and again, we're happy to discuss what our expectations moving forward. But at this point, for this presentation, as outlined, with meeting at least once, it gives anticipation that our audit reports would be available and complete by January, and want to have our commission meet in January to review that report, to meet that at least one meeting within 45 days from availability. So meet in February, and again, that's basically the outline there. And I jumped ahead, so I don't mean to read the slides too, but so if you have any questions, this concludes the presentation for this item. So it's at the discretion of the commission on how you would like to proceed. If you would like to, again, move forward with recommendation to receive and file with the city council. Again, these are also posted. Measure X reports are posted on the city's website. And have been posted on the city's website, but to formalize the action of the commission, happy to coordinate however you would like to proceed.
I think we should entertain a motion to approve or ratify the report of measure expenditures, and then that will be presented to the council.
I can make that motion to approve the auditor's report for the
Measure X.
Measure X, the past years as a block, maybe.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, if I'm to.
I'm sorry,
any
Mr. Chairman.
questions? Yeah.
I would recommend that as part of your recommendation, part of the duties is also to recommend an action for the council. So it would be appropriate for us to receive and file, for the commission to vote on a receive and file motion, and recommendation that the council receive and file the report without any adverse findings by the CFAC commission.
So would that be another motion, or would that be an amendment to the motion?
I can amend to include that language.
Okay.
Makes it more appropriate.
Second can go to.
Okay. Motion amended and seconded. Any discussion? Hear none. All those in favor?
You want to see
I guess we work.
technology.
Yes.
Technology.
Oh, no, that's not gonna work.
All votes are recorded. Motion passes.
And that is 4-0, correct? All ayes? Yes? Thank you.
All eyes.
Thank you.
Okay, so before adjournment, is there a need to propose another meeting before the next February meeting, or what's the wish of the commission?
don't know if it would, I know I've been quiet most of the meeting, I've just been a little sponge, just kind of absorbing everything, you know, the new guy. But how does the commission feel about at least trying to meet quarterly? That would be something that at least we can at least keep in touch. Not be kind of strangers and meet just once or twice a year.
Maybe, but, well, quarterly, maybe too frequent, maybe every 6 months.
Mr. Chairman, a couple thoughts. One, I think the commission should meet just to get a little more familiar with his duty and responsibilities, and I think it would be fair to meet to get an update on how the current year level of expenditures, Measure X related, is flowing, perhaps. That way, when we get to the annual review at the end, it's not all brand new information. We have a little bit of an update, maybe at mid-year. The other thing I want to mention is, and I don't know where exactly it is in this ordinance, but if you have meetings scheduled, and John could probably speak to this better than I can, and if you don't show up, there are consequences. John, is that right, John?
That is correct. Yeah, you're supposed to attend at least your annual meeting, or the city council has the option to replace you on the commission. Definitely, it is a volunteer position. We do thank you guys for volunteering your service, but if there's any other obligations that you have and you can't fulfill that duty, just please let us know. And I know that's been a challenge over time. I know everyone's very busy. So that might be part of the discussion today as well. What is a day that works well? If it's this Friday afternoon time, does this work well around this beginning of the month? So that I would open that up for the commission to discuss. What's a good day, time of the month to meet, so we can help the staff coordinate those and facilitate.
It's really nice not to be limited by staff's perspective to speak appropriately on these matters. I can speak a little bit more openly about them. So, to my point, if you set more meetings, you should be there. It shouldn't be something that was just blown off, because it's staff's duty now to say so and so didn't attend the meeting, and it puts pressure on the council to find someone who can attend the meetings.
That's a good point. How does the staff feel about quarterly meetings, at least maybe for the next year? We don't want to overburden you, and I know you have a lot of work, and
I'm happy to meet. If it is quarterly, what we would need to have is what would we like on those agendas. That's the key, right? That's establishing a meeting and determining what does that quarterly meeting look like. Now, if it's an updated report, like where do we get a year-to-date status, we can gladly meet to discuss and review as well. Again, because I know schedules are sometimes a little tight, I'm happy to also provide that information on a quarterly basis and then meet on every 6 months, like Rob alluded to, mid-year. So if you want quarterly updates, I'm happy to send out year-to-date reports, and then at that time, if that's if you deem that there's a meeting that's warranted to review any of those expenditures, again, because at any time in the given year, when we start July 1, come through September, we may, depending on the type of projects, we may or not have any revenue generation. We may or may not have any project activity. Those are just kind of the elements that we face. So I want to make the best use of your time, but I'm available to meet. If it's quarterly, I can manage quarterly. I just need to know the expectation and what kind of agenda we're looking at, so then I can prepare as well.
comments? I like the idea of a report. I mean, it seems now, the clarification that we got, that most of the money, the 1/3 of the money is gonna be debt service, and the other 2/3 are gonna be on the streets, and the other one on the public service. Perhaps we can just get a detailed report on, how that's going on a quarterly basis, and then meet on the next 6 months, just to,
And maybe just keep it simple. I would say updates would be something that obviously you would benefit from, I'd say. Kind of keep us in a loop. I mean, I know it's pretty vague when I say updates. I mean, obviously, we would probably accept any of your suggestions, what you would present to the commission as far as, what would you like to update us on, or your recommendations of something that can just keep us kind of just in the loop again, so that way when we do the formal annual meeting, we're all on the same page and not trying to read through a whole bunch of material.
Definitely. I know we're playing a lot of catch up. So what I would do, not that I want more work, believe me, but considering the nature of the commission and the time that it's been, and of course and then I would actually be in favor of a quarterly. Just take this 1 year, entertain a quarterly. At least we can set something for the next, so what are we in June? So September or say October, because it gives us a full quarter we can plan on an October meeting, and I can come to you with what that looks like in October for us in terms of give you an update on where we're at with audit, because we're getting ready for interim audit. I can get you where we're at as an estimated year end at June 30, 2025, and I can give you a quarterly update as what's happening in the new fiscal year. And then let's just do that for a little bit, and I can just give you, it's basically like a year-to-date update. You guys all can meet, and then we'll see how it goes. And then from after year one, if it decides, it's 2 meetings or it's too much, then we'll move from there. So I think it's to build that camaraderie amongst the commission.
Right,
I
and
would
it'll probably,
recommend that we have quarterly meetings
and we probably,
for a year and see where we are. Some of us may need to get a little more acquainted with bigger process instead of just getting handed a report, ask questions. So I would think that would be a great idea.
I would appreciate that, because I'm learning as well.
yes, and I think by then we'll probably have the vacant position filled. Is there any pressure on the councilman to appoint somebody? Has that appointment not been already?
Well,
I
that
can
would
talk
also
to
help with this as well, right? So that if we do get another commissioner, it brings them into the fold, we'll revisit, and it's not like trying to revisit and try to figure it out all over again. Believe me, I know one time a year things kind of, have to dust off all those dust bunnies, but once we get an appointment, I know that that's in queue right now. So as soon as we need applicants, if you can advocate in any peers you have out there to put in for the position.
Let's make it official, and I want to entertain a motion to meet quarterly for the next year.
Could you just be more specific on the month, perhaps? Just, I know that sounds kind of a dumb question.
Which quarter you mean?
October, yeah.
Yeah, October.
And,
As long as we don't go through the holiday season having a meeting.
yeah, no, October and maybe January, February. Well, we have the February meeting, so yeah.
So,
So make,
because where were we at now? June, July,
Yeah, so
August,
it'd be October as the first quarter meeting.
October, January.
And so
February.
either one, we can do October, January, and then again, February, depends on the audit, right? But we'll plan for that sense is October, January, April, and then move forward.
okay,
I second that.
okay, so measure made by Fernando.
Our goal is to have by January that report anyways.
Okay, so motion was made, but you want to?
Yeah, let me formalize. So I'll make the motion for the commission to hold quarterly meetings. First being in October of 25, next January of 26, and April of 26. See, I think that's about, that should be enough right there, quarterly. So, yeah, it covers our bases.
Yes.
Any seconds?
One question, we only have 45 days from the report. Does that fall on a quarter? Does it fall mid-quarter? So we don't, 90 days is gonna be more than 45.
Right, so I'm gonna try to coordinate as best as possible. So my goal is that, on my side, is to get these audits done by like December. And so that we would have that report available to you by January to meet that timeline. That's the goal on our end, regardless. But again, it's just commitment on the commission that you have that availability to meet. Happy to, if you want to send me what weeks work, if it's the third week, a Monday, a Friday, I mean, that would help me in a sense, to kind of navigate that, a little bit more.
Can you send a poll? You have a poll where we ask what dates are good? Friday works for me, even though it's almost the end.
I know it's thinking of October sometimes makes it a little challenging, but I can set that so we can actually lock it in and have that, and then if anything comes up before then as you're
making other plans, as you move in your own careers in life, you can have that out there and we can coordinate. So I'll send out a few dates for October, so at least we have that on the schedule.
Wonderful, thank you. So do I have a second? Not yet? Okay. Second. Commissioner Wells seconds it. Any discussion? No? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Is there anything else that we need to address?
No, nothing
Okay.
from me.
I
Thank
would
you.
just like to ask that you please send us the language.
I have that down, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then the idea that I brought up about the interest that's being generated by the fund balance on the Measure X, if that could be explored?
I can review that and see what that is, because we'd have to look at the ballot measure and the ordinance and see how that's written. And then look at legal in terms of, if that were an option, what is the option? What is the alternative? What is that pathway, right?
Yeah, look into it. I mean, it just could generate additional money, may take it away from the general fund. So at this point, that interest income is going to the general fund.
That is correct.
My concern right now, and I'd like to ask a question, how are the tariffs going to affect the projects that we have? Do you see that, are we gonna have to slow down to, and wait for the prices to go down, or what?
I'll attempt that one. So as Treasurer Rockwell mentioned, the city always faces ups and downs. We had COVID in 2020, 21, and 22. There is hyperinflation, so that also impacted a lot of our projects, supply chain issues during that year. Now, before this tariff talk, we're talking about high interest rates, our ability to, get bonds and loans to fund some of our projects. So we're actively working on, the police headquarters building that we talked about. So we already have a construction team in place. We already have our construction management team and an architect in place. So we're still moving forward. We're not slowing down. Constant talks with our public works director about the Monroe interchange. Again, we're still working on those plans, finalizing, still trying to get that one out to bid. So we're not slowing down because of the tariffs, but we do get additional information, especially like Monroe interchange, as Rob mentioned as well. We're working with Caltrans, working with the county on that one, and they're seeing some impacts to other projects regionally. There's just a construction project in Temecula that Caltrans was working on that 15 freeway. If you're familiar with that area, they just did an extension there right by the Promenade Mall in Temecula, and that came in higher because of this tariff fear, and that's what we're seeing with some of the contractors, that maybe they're adding a little more to their bid in anticipation that maybe they can't get all the supplies that they need to do the construction. So it's not slowing us down,
Yeah,
we're just trying to plan ahead.
That's what concerns me, that our money won't go as far, and some of our projects may suffer.
Yeah, that is a concern, but we're not slowing down because of it. We're just trying to plan it accordingly and still move forward and do those things that we need to do for the city of Indio.
Thank you, John. So I'd like to thank the finance team. Ruby, thank you very much. Thank you. Pass along thanks to your team.
Thank you. And those of you behind the
Thank you.
scenes.
Thank you, Rob, too, for your input. Glad to have you here. Hopefully you can join us all the time.
Language, I'm in the ballot, not the ballot, but the ordinance.
You are here.
So I am here, whether they like it or not,
Oh,
whether staff likes it or
at
not.
previous meetings, we didn't have that treasurer here.
No, the treasurer was here for prior
Yeah,
commission
we've had
meetings.
them before. Yeah, it's a permanent
Oh, okay.
position.
All right,
I just
so-
don't get to vote.
All right. Well, thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment of the meeting.
I'll make a motion to.
Seconded by Weller, Commissioner Weller. Oh,
Want a second?
I'll second it.
There you go.
okay. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Great meeting. A lot of information. Let's go eat. Lunch is on Rob. You retired too young.